Welcome back friends. Kwenye kipindi hichi tunaenda kuendelea na topic yetu ya coordination. Na leo tuna discuss kuhusu categories of neurotransmitters. Kwa hiyo we have discussed a lot regarding the synaptic transmission. And yesterday we discussed about the rules and the functions of synapse. Lakini leo to discuss kidogo kuhusu categories of neurotransmitter. One thing you need to remember ni kwamba each kipengele hakiko moja kwa moja kwenye syllabus, but I prefer teaching this part because some of the questions appear in the exams ambayo huwa yanakuhitaji ungejua angalau haya maelezo. So the information which I'll give you here, they will help you to answer different categories of questions in your exam. However, this part is not mentioned in the syllabus. Kwa hiyo remember, mimi sifundishi video kwenye syllabus, nafundisha vitakavyokusaidia ujibu mtihani and finally perform well in your subjects. So tulivyosoma synapse tukasema kuna baadhi ya synapse they ni inhibitory, baadhi ya synapse they are excitatory synapses. Lakini pia even in the neurotransmitter, some of the neurotransmitters they are commonly used in some kind of synapse ambazo zinajulikana kabisa specific. So neurotransmitter are substances which neurons use to communicate with one another and with their targeted tissues in the process of synaptic transmission au neurotransmission. So these are the chemical substances ambazo zinatumika kumfanya neuron mmoja communicate na mwenzake katika synaptic transmission. These chemical substances zinaitwa neurotransmitters. From there, a neurotransmitter they are synthesizing in and released from the nerve endings into the synaptic cleft. They are synthesized in the cell body. Zinakuwa synthesized kwenye cell body of the neuron. They are synthesized in the cell body of the neuron. Cell body of the neuron. Ikishakuwa synthesized in the cell body of the neuron and release the synthesized in the cell body of the neuron and released from the nerve endings into the synaptic cleft. After being synthesized in the cell body of the neuron, they are transported down to the nerve ending ambako ndiko zinakuwa packed katika synaptic vesicles na zinakuwa released. As I told you before kwamba mechanism by which neurotransmitters zinatoka kwenye cell body hadi kufika kwenye axon terminal, yani kwenye button terminale ambako ndiko synapse iko, hatutaisoma for our level. For our level, we will not deal with it. So from there, the neurotransmitter bind to receptor proteins in the cell membrane of target tissue. The target tissue gets excited, inhibited, or functionally modified in some other way. The impulse from one axon to the next neuron, it can lead to excitation of the next neuron, the inhibition of the next neuron, or functionally modification of the next neuron. There are more than 40 neurotransmitters in the human nervous system. The following are the major neurotransmitters and their effect in the body. We discuss only 5 major neurotransmitters. There are more than 40 molecules. And these 5 we have just selected these because for our level, sehemu nyingi tutakuwa nasoma is neurotransmitter. Kwanza, we have acetylcholine, which is very common. Acetylcholine, abbreviated as ACH. Acetylcholine, capital A, capital C, and then small h, is an excitatory neurotransmitter secreted by motor neurons that innervate muscle cell, the basal ganglia, preganglionic neurons of autonomic system, and postganglionic neurons of parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system that innervate sweat gland. So the sympathetic nervous system inayotumia acetylcholine ni ile inayo innervate sweat gland tu, sweat gland only. Other sympathetic nervous system neurons, the motor neurons of our sympathetic nervous system, which do not innervate the sweat gland, they don't use acetylcholine, they use norepinephrine. You see, kwa hiyo kuna different neurotransmitter zinazotumika kwenye mazingira mbalimbali. So it is excitatory in all cases except in the heart where it is inhibitory. Katika kesi zote yenyewe ni excitatory except katika cardiac muscle it is inhibitory. It is inhibitory. So acetylcholine is an excitatory neurotransmitter secreted by motor neurons. Tumesha discuss here. Functions of acetylcholine. Functions of acetylcholine. Kwanza, acetylcholine is responsible for regulating sleep cycle, essential for muscle functioning. Sleep cycle, yani muda gani ulale, muda gani uwe awake. Then number 2, it stimulates muscle contraction. Unaweza kuona ni kama vile kitu ambacho hakina maana sana, muscle contraction. How with disadvantages? As if hakina maana sana, but it is very important. It is very important kwa sababu lazima tu tuna kitu ambacho kina maintain na kusema sasa hivi you are required to sleep na sasa hivi you are required to be awake na kufanya kazi. Number 2, it stimulates muscle contraction. The only exception to this where acetylcholine is inhibitory neurotransmitter is at parasympathetic ending of vagus nerve ambayo ni kwenye cardiac plexus katika heart muscles. Tukisema plexus is simply like a collection of many nerves. So collection of many nerves, they form a plexus. Kama tulivyosema katika cardiac muscle, the acetylcholine is inhibitory neurotransmitter. So the only exception to the excitatory function of the acetylcholine, yani kusema acetylcholine ina excite the muscles au ina cause muscle contraction, ni kwenye heart muscle. In the heart muscle, acetylcholine ina cause muscles isi contract, ina inhibit muscle contraction. Lakini number 3, acetylcholine plays a vital role in normal functioning of muscles. It plays a vital role in normal functioning of muscles. For example, poisonous plants like Culeia and hemlock cause paralysis of muscle by blocking the acetylcholine receptor. Kwa hiyo manake ili tusababishe paralysis of muscle lazima tuvunje kazi ya acetylcholine receptor, kumaanisha kwamba acetylcholine ni muhimu sana katika muscle contraction. From there, number 2 is norepinephrine. Norepinephrine is another neurotransmitter which is also common in the nervous system. So norepinephrine is also known as the noradrenaline and is abbreviated as N, capital N, capital A, and then D. Capital N, capital A, then D. It is an excitatory neurotransmitter produced by the brain stem, the hypothalamus, and the adrenal gland. Inatengenezwa na brain stem, hypothalamus, and the adrenal gland, and released into the blood stream. In the brain, it increases the level of alertness and wakefulness. Alertness, ile namna ya wewe kama kushtuliwa kuwa faster. Wewe njoo mara moja. Okay, unakuja fast. the alertness and the wakefulness. So that means kama norepinephrine isipokuwepo, huyu mtu anaweza kawa anasinzia kwa vitu vingi, anasinzia yani yuko slow kurespond a lot of things. So it is secreted by most postganglionic synaptic nerves except those supplying the sweat gland. Postganglionic sympathetic nerves, postganglionic sympathetic nerves zinatoa noradrenaline except those supplying the sweat gland, ambazo tusema zinatoa nini? Zinatoa acetylcholine. The postganglionic sympathetic nerves of sweat gland supplying the sweat gland, they release acetylcholine. Katika function of norepinephrine, to increase the level of alertness and wakefulness. P, it stimulates various processes in the body. For example, it is very important in the endogenous production of epinephrine. Norepinephrine has been impacted in a mood disorder such as depression and anxiety. Depression ni ile hali ambayo mtu anakuwa ni kama mawazo yamemzidia, yani stress iliyozidi, tunaita depression. Anxiety ni woga ni mtu anakuwa mwoga kwa kila kitu. Sasa depression is due to a low amount of norepinephrine, while anxiety inakuwa ni ile wakefulness imezidi. Kwa mtu anakuwa mwoga ni kwa sababu ya norepinephrine imezidi. So in which case it is concentration in the body is abnormally low. Unaona, kama concentration katika body ikiwa very low, ndio anaweza kawa na conditions kama hizi hapa. Alternatively, an abnormally high concentration of it may lead to impaired sleep cycle. Mtu anaweza asilale, anakaa muda mwingi yuko macho kwa sababu tu ya norepinephrine iko nyingi. The third neurotransmitter which we will discuss is dopamine, DA, abbreviated as capital DA, dopamine. It is the neurotransmitter secreted by the neurons of the substantia nigra. Dopamine, nimekwambia for your level it's not much important for you to understand about all of these neurotransmitter, but I'm just touching through these neurotransmitter. Substantia nigra, hii ni part of the limbic system ambayo iko katika brain stem. You know, for your level unasoma tu brain, na umesoma brain form 3. Hii advance hatutasoma brain, hatudeal na central nervous system. Tumedeal tu kidogo na peripheral nervous system kudiscuss kuhusu sympathetic na parasympathetic. Lakini ukifika chuoni utasoma sana kuhusu brain, utasoma sana the neuroanatomy, utasoma brain, utasoma sana mambo ya physiology, neurophysiology, different disorders affect disorders and diseases associated with the nervous system. So you shall see all of these substantia nigra and things like that. It is considered as the special type of neurotransmitter because its effects are both excitatory and inhibitory, which effect depend on the type of receptor that dopamine binds to. Kwa hiyo sometimes it can be excitatory and sometimes it can be inhibitory depending on the type of receptor ambayo imebind. So function of dopamine is the part of extrapyramidal motor system. The extrapyramidal motor system, which involves the basal ganglia. Dopamine is important for movement coordination by inhibiting unnecessary movements. I know it's very hard to understand me in this part, but when you reach university level you understand me. Sometimes there are some of the practicals ambazo, let's say we have a cup here, and then you tell a person to come and touch this cup. What happens is that if this person has a hand here, and then anajaribu kusogeza huu mkono aweze kugusa hichi kikombe. Huu mkono unapokuwa unazidi kukaribia hapa hichi kikombe, mkono unaanza kufanya shaking. So mkono unaanza kuwa na movement fulani za kushake hapa. Hauwezi kugusa, una shake. So actually it is hard to demonstrate this. It is hard to demonstrate this. Let's try to see how can I demonstrate this. If I fail, I will try another time to. Okay, anyway, so nilichokuwa nakisema ni kwamba unakuta let's say kuna kitu kimewekwa tufanye let's say kimewekwa kitu kama hiki hapa. Kimewekwa kitu kama hiki hapa. Sasa huyu mtu anakuwa anajaribu kugusa hichi kitu. Anapofika kama hapa, anaanza kutikisa hivi mkono. Yaani mkono unakuwa hauwezi kugusa hichi kitu. Au kuna experiment nyingine ambazo huyu mtu anaweza akawa ameambiwa tu aguse pua hivi. Aguse pua. Sasa mkono unapokaribia kugusa hii pua, actually my lighting here is not well, lakini kabla hajagusa hii pua kuna movement kama hii hapa, yani anashindwa kuigusa. Why? It's because of dopamine ndio inapelekea vitu kama hivyo. Lighting yangu hapa iko vizuri sana, lakini I hope umeelewa kidogo. Tunaposema necessary movement, ile mtu anataka kugusa pua anaanza kumove mkono, maana yake tayari kuna muscle contraction katika biceps na triceps brachii na muscles nyingine of the hand ambazo zinasababisha huyu mtu ashindwe ku coordinate the movement vizuri. Lakini namba 2 ni pituitary gland. It inhibits the release of prolactin and stimulates the secretion of growth hormone. Inhibit the release of prolactin and stimulate the secretion of growth hormone. Clinical notes kidogo tu actually for your level you are not required to know about the clinical notes. Dopamine deficiency related to destruction of substantia nigra lead to Parkinson's disease. Dopamine deficiency related to destruction of substantia nigra leads to a Parkinson's disease. I know regarding the Parkinson's disease mnaweza mkamna baadhi ya detail, lakini kama mjui basi ni vitu mbalimbali ambavyo utakuja kuviona kwenye medicine. Kuna ugonjwa unaitwa Parkinson's disease ambao unatokana na deficiency of dopamine. Huu ugonjwa huo always mtu anakuwa ni very slow katika process za movement. Increased activity of dopaminergic neurons contribute to pathophysiology of psychological disorders and schizophrenia. Vitu kama schizophrenia actually unaweza usivielewe sana, lakini I will find the way to explain them more in my book, kwa sababu hizi notes to draft ambayo nikija kwenye kitabu nitajaribu kuzielezea sana. Drugs and alcohol abuse can temporarily increase dopamine level in blood. Drug and alcohol abuse can temporarily increase dopamine level in blood, leading to confusion and the inability to focus. However, an appropriate secretion of dopamine in the bloodstream plays a role in motivation or desire to complete a task. Yani ile namna ya wewe kuona lazima hii kazi nimalize, lazima hii part nisome nimalize. It is due to a sufficient supply of dopamine. Then we have the gamma aminobutyric acid, which is GABA. Gamma aminobutyric acid, which is GABA. Sometimes this gamma inaweza kaandikwa sio hivi gamma, ikaandikwa tu ile Greek letter gamma, the Greek letter gamma. So ikiandikwa Greek letter gamma, ikaandikwa gamma ya maneno, it's the same. So gamma aminobutyric acid, which is GABA, is the most powerful inhibitory neurotransmitter produced by neurons of the spinal cord cerebellum, basal ganglia, and the main area of the cerebral cortex. It is derived from glutamate neurotransmitter. Kifupi nikwambie gamma aminobutyric acid ni inhibitory neurotransmitter in the central nervous system. Functions of GABA. Functions of GABA, they are closely related to the mood and emotions. And it is an inhibitory neurotransmitter that acts as brake to excitatory neurotransmitters. Thus, when it is abnormally low, this can lead to anxiety. Kama iko kidogo, inaweza kapelekea mtu awe mwoga sana. Kwa sababu tumesema GABA inahusika na mood and emotions. Lakini ikiwa kwenye concentration yake ya kawaida, maana yake mood and emotion zitakuwa ziko kawaida. Ikizidi, huyu mtu anakuwa na depression, yaani anakuwa kama vile stress imezidi. It is widely distributed in the brain and plays a principal role in reducing normal excitability, neuronal excitability through the nervous system. Katika nervous system huwa sometimes neurons na excite hata mazingira ambayo they are not required to excite. So hii iko widely distributed katika brain ambako inasaidia ku reduce normal excitability through the nervous system. From there we have glutamate. It's the most powerful excitatory neurotransmitter of the central nervous system. Tumesema GABA ni most powerful inhibitory neurotransmitter of the central nervous system, while glutamate is the most powerful excitatory neurotransmitter of the central nervous system, which ensures homeostasis with the effect of GABA. Kwa glutamate na GABA wanafanya homeostasis katika brain. It is secreted by neurons of many of the sensory pathway entering the central nervous system, as well as cerebral cortex. Inakuwa secreted na neurons nyingi ambazo zinaingia kwa central nervous system. Glutamate katika function is the most common neurotransmitter in the central nervous system. It takes part in the regulation of general excitability of the central nervous system, learning processes, and memory. Thus, inappropriate glutamate neurotransmitter contributes to developing epilepsy, ambayo epilepsy ni kifafa, and also cognition and affective disorders. Cognition and affective disorders. You'll learn more about all of these disorders when you come in university level. You understand all of these disorders. Serotonin, ambayo ni 5-hydroxyl tryptamine or 5-HT. Serotonin is an inhibitory neurotransmitter that has been found to be intimately involved in emotion and mood. Ni inhibitor lakini inatumika katika emotion and mood. It is secreted by neurons of the brainstem and by neurons that innervate the gastrointestinal tract or enteric nervous system. In addition, serotonin is found in platelets, yani thrombocytes, which release it during coagulation or hemostasis. Hemostasis hapa sio ile maintenance of constant internal body conditions. Hapa hemostasis inamaanisha blood clotting. So katika function, it participates in regulation of body temperature, perception of pain, emotion, sleep cycle. Now, an insufficient secretion of serotonin may result in decreased immune system function, as well as a range of emotional disorders like depression, anger control problem, obsessive compulsive disorders, and the suicide tendencies. Yani mtu anakuwa anajisikia kujinyonga tu, hapa hakuna cha maana hapa duniani. Hiyo ilikuwa ni serotonin. From there we have histamine. Histamine is an excitatory neurotransmitter produced by neurons of hypothalamus. Cells of the stomach, mucosa, mast cell, and basophils in the blood. Histamine yenyewe ni excitatory neurotransmitter na inakuwa released na maeneo mbalimbali, especially the mast cell. Mast cell ndizo ambazo they are more prominent in releasing histamine. So katika function of histamine in the central nervous system, it is important for wakefulness. Ili mtu aweze kuwa anaweza kufanya kazi vizuri, lazima histamine iwepo. Unaona? It regulates blood pressure, pain and sexual behavior. It regulates blood pressure, pain and sexual behavior. Here it doesn't need more explanation. We just have to regulate his activity. The mechanism of how is that done is they are out of scope of what you are required to learn in this level. So in regulating your blood pressure, pain and sexual behavior. Number 3, in stomach, it increases the acidity. Manake histamine ikiwa released katika stomach receptors inafanya stomach iwe more acidic, au ina stimulate the release of more acidic solution. Ni gastric acid, gastric juice ile gastric juice inakuwa made more acidic. Manake kuna vitu tunaviita histamine receptor. Histamine receptor katika stomach, hizi histamine receptor katika stomach zinafanya release of more acidic solution. Na ndio maana katika kutibu vidonda vya tumbo, moja kati ya dawa tunazitumia ni inhibitors wa histamine 2 receptor. Sababu tunafahamu histamine receptors zinahusika katika kuincrease acidity. Kwa maana kwa namna moja au nyingine tukizi-inhibit hizi receptor, tutakuwa tumeongeza namna ambayo stomach haitatengeneza tena acid nyingi. Unaona, katika treatment of peptic ulcers, unaona, then toka hapo ina mediating inflammatory reactions. Kama unaona kuna different inflammatory reactions in the body, many of them they are mediated by histamine. Kwa hiyo kuna different categories of inflammatory reactions katika body, na especially hapa nazungumzia zile ambazo zinakuwa mediated by the mast cell. Kwa mfano vitu kama chafya ni inflammatory reaction, na vitu vingine vingi tu ambavyo ni inflammatory reaction. Histamine ndiye ambaye anakuwa yuko responsible pale. Manake huwezi kupiga chafya kama histamine isingekuwepo, na vitu vingine vingi sana, allergic reactions. Mimi na allergy na vumbi, akifika kwenye vumbi nakuta piga sana chafya. Allergic reactions, they are controlled by histamine released by mast cells. Naona, so it is involved primarily in the inflammatory response, as well as the range of other functions such as vasodilation and the regulation of immune response to foreign bodies. For example, when allergens are introduced into the bloodstream, histamine assists in the fight against these microorganisms, causing itching of the skin or irritations of throat, nose and lungs. Kwa hiyo kwa mfano vile kupiga chafya ni kwa sababu kuna allergens fulani body inakuwa inataka zitoke mwilini. Finally, we have epinephrine, also known as adrenaline. Adrenaline is an excitatory neurotransmitter produced by chromatin cells of the adrenal gland. It prepares the body for fight or flight response. That means that when a person is highly stimulated, or when you see a lion, then extra amount of epinephrine or adrenaline is released into blood. Actually, epinephrine or adrenaline, sometimes it acts at the hormone, but also it is the neurotransmitter. The release of epinephrine katika function, release of epinephrine increases the heart rate, blood pressure and the glucose production by liver through glucogenolysis or gluconeosynthesis. glycogenolysis au gluconeogenesis. Glycogenolysis ni kuvunjavunja glycogen iliyoko, ila gluconeogenesis ni kutengeneza a new glucose. In this, the nervous and endocrine system prepare the body for dangerous and extreme situations by increasing nutrient supply to key tissues. Kwa hiyo kwa kufanya hizo process, nervous and endocrine system zinafanya mwili ujiandae kwa ajili ya dangerous condition. So we have finished our discussion regarding neurotransmitter. In the coming session, we start discussing about the sensory receptor, the concept of sensory receptors, and the categories of sensory receptor. Thank you, and let me wish you nice studies.